Brittany, don't give him credit for this. He feels guilty for what he did, so he's trying to placate his own conscience. But even in all of the actions of it, what's he trying to do? What kind of bravado is this? To show up with a letter that he's framed that's like, I can't breathe without you. But he's not trying to rekindle the romance. He's trying to make it okay to himself that he did this to you, that he used you, destroyed you so he could keep on with his own career. You know, and you're over there like, I mean, he tried so hard. I was just in a bad place. It was hard to concentrate on what he was saying. Like, yeah, you're in a bad place because the guy cheated on you for years. Then forced you to get an abortion, and then I was like, by the way, I'm going to use that little nugget of a confession you gave me so my career can explode and yours can implode. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise, and today we're doing part 2 of the Brittany memoir, The Woman in Me. Now, I had to take the cover off this book because YouTube didn't like it. They almost didn't monetize my last video, and I had to edit out the scan of the cover, so I'm not doing that again. But this section is super juicy. This memoir is a tell-all like I had not anticipated. When I know I'm gonna review a book, I don't listen to anything about it because I want my thoughts to be fresh. I want to not have heard everything before. I want it to still be fun to read it. So the one thing that I had heard from this section was when Justin pushed her to end the life of their child. And I knew about that. So I was prepared for that. I was not prepared for all the other stuff that we get in this section. We're talking about her breakup with Justin, about the betrayal, about how he twisted what had happened so that he could come out like the good guy. It's so messed up. But then there's other things too that we're talking about that really put a spotlight on her mental illness. And you guys, you know, I've really come to like Brittany a lot reading this. I like the way she just tells it like it is. I mean, when she starts talking about little sister Jamie Lynn, she does not hold back. And it is honestly hilarious. And I love that. I love the freedom that she has to tell her own story. It's fantastic. But I will say that if she wrote this book to make us believe that she does not struggle with mental illness, I have to say the book fails there. She does not come off as a well person. And she comes off as so likable and so honest and so earnest. She's just, it's an incredibly likable read. But she exposes different struggles that she's had throughout the years that just make you know she really needed somebody to help her and somebody to be honest with her about what was happening in her mind. Somebody to help her manage her emotions. She desperately needs guidance. And what comes out even more clear in this section, even more than the first section, because last time we read it was all about her growing up years and the people who were taking care of her, the history of mental illness in her family. I mean, that last section really showed us what a lack of parenting she had. But now we're on the other side of that. Now she's an adult functioning in the world by herself, and the lack of having somebody to give her any foundation, not even a moral compass, but I mean, I'm talking about just practically how do you move about the world? How do you understand human nature? Like, she's had no conversations with anybody to help her grasp, you know, why do people do what they do? Why do people say what they say? There's been no shepherd in her life to help her understand other people. She's constantly bamboozled in this chapter by reactions that people have to her, by the things she does and then the way people react to her. But she can't figure out why when she does this, people do this. And sometimes as the reader, you think, well, it's fairly obvious why this is the way people reacted to you, but she can't piece it together. And even now as an adult, she seems confused. This is a testament to the fact that actually you need people who are invested enough in you to show you the way so that you don't make all the mistakes and you're not all this so confused all along the way. I think that the saddest part of this book is just to see somebody who's always looking to try to figure out, okay, that looks like that's working for them. I guess I'll try that, you know, and it comes out a little bit in this chapter. Next section that we do, part 3, it's going to come out even more. And some of the role models that she's taking on are not positive. I would not say that diva Madonna behavior is something you should try on. But because she has never been taught, Brittany has never been taught autonomy, how to stand up for herself, how that people pleasing can be dangerous. It's a beautiful spirit to have, but you also need to know how to not be walked all over, and that's really hard to do. And as a people pleaser myself, I know that. So Brittany is left to try to figure out how can I stand up for myself? And since nobody will teach her a positive way to do that, she's watching these divas and the way they just sort of use and abuse people. And she's like, is that a way to be? Is that a way to do? Maybe I just need some more, boss bitch vibes. And I'm like, girl, you don't. But there's nobody to teach her. There's no one to tell her, And so it's just, there's just so much in this chapter. The Justin Timberlake stuff. I'll tell you what, I never liked that guy. Never liked him. And now that he's become a clown, it's sweet vindication, honestly, because I know that there's two sides to every story. I totally get that. And I know we're just getting Britney's side of things, but I think that there's enough instances far outside of Britney that can lead us to believe that Justin Timberlake has some problems. And he has definitely used people and manipulated scenarios so that he comes out tops. He does not come out top in this book, I'll tell you that much right now. Okay, let's get started because we have a lot of chapters to get through. This is chapter 8. You'll remember that we left off where Britney's mother had met this entertainment lawyer named Larry. And Britney has just recorded a demo of a song that Toni Braxton had cut from her record. So Britney gets it. And she's going to go to New York with the lawyer friend, and he's going to sort of shop her around to all these executives. So that's where we pick up. She says that the first executive they went to was a guy named Clive Calder, who was the record executive who'd founded Jive Records. When she goes up to see this guy, she is so blown away by his 3-story office and the fact that he's got this little teacup terrier, the likes of which she's never seen. She cannot get over how much she's in love with this almost alternate universe that she has walked into. She just loves Clive. So much so that the 2 pages she takes to talk about how much she loved him and how he had this mystical smile and this amazing voice and that she would do anything to be closer to him is odd. But it is indicative of who she is in many interpersonal relationships. Clingy. She says that she just loved him so much because he believed in her. And that's why she just needed to be seen by him and wanted to be close to him. But I think it's a little bit of an odd statement because it isn't as though she had struggled to get people to believe in her up to this point. She's had a stint on Broadway. She's been on the Mickey Mouse Club for 1.5 years. She's won countless awards. She's been on TV shows. I mean, she's not a little nobody. So for her to act like, well, the reason that I just love Clive so much is because he believed in me. A lot of people have believed in her and have given her a start. And she hasn't exactly been stumbling from one unsuccessful event to the other. She's had options her whole growing up years as far as what she wants to do. I mean, even when she decided to just up and quit Broadway, that certainly wasn't the end of her career. She picked right back up when she was ready. So I don't know about that reasoning. To me, it's more indicative of the fact that she's just desperate to be loved and to be seen. And, she'll get that attention wherever she needs to get it. One of the things that she talks about is when she would go and sing in these boardrooms with all these executives in their suits, and they'd be looking her up and down in her little dress, and she would just sing her heart out for them. It doesn't seem like there was no fear for her in being sort of looked at like a piece of meat. And, she was also really young. She's 15 years old. There's some people who that would scare. Britney, I don't think is the sort that would have been scared by that because she has male attention is really exhilarating for her. I think having all those men with the eyeballs on her was exciting for her. And I'm not even judging her for that or anything. I'm just saying Britney was driven by one thing. And that, I think, was to be seen and to be known and to be loved. And if there were people who were willing to give her that, she would do a lot for the crumbs off of that table. Now, she goes on to say that day Clive signed her and she ended up getting a record deal with Jive Records at the age of 15. Now, Mama Lynn can't come. Mama Lynn's decided to settle down and start teaching 2nd grade. Remember, she had a teaching certificate and had taught before. So now, someone's got to make the money. I have no idea what's going on with Mr. Spears. No idea whatsoever. And so she can't come anymore. Little Jamie Lynn's got to stay back. She's school age now. So they get a family friend called Felicia Collada to come. She always called her Miss Fee. She said the label wanted me in the studio immediately. They put Fee and me up in an apartment in New York, and we would drive to New Jersey every day, and I'd go into a booth and I'd sing for producer and songwriter Eric Foster White, who'd worked with Whitney Houston. She says, honestly, I was clueless. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew I loved to sing and I loved to dance. So whichever of the gods could come down and coordinate that for me, I was going to show up for them. If anyone was able to put something together for me that presented me in a format people could relate to, I was ready. I don't know what happened, but God worked his magic, and there I was in New Jersey recording. I don't know if it was God or the devil, but anyway, she's going under this booth and she's singing every day, and like from sun up to sundown, she's in that booth, and she won't quit for anything. And people are like, "Hey, let's take a break." Not Britney. She's not taking a break. Now she says this is a real question mark to me. Y'all let me know what you think about this. Of course, being the pop singer that she is, who do you think they want her to get to know? There's only one person to know if you are a pop singer. So they tell her they want her to get to know this producer from Sweden. And they tell her he's really good. He writes really cool songs. And she says, okay, well, who's he worked with? And she says even now she looks back and is surprised that she knew to ask that question. But she had a really clear idea about what she wanted to sound like. So she wanted to work with people who could create that sound for her. And she was told that he'd done songs for the Backstreet Boys, Robin, and Bryan Adams. So she said, okay, I'll do it. And who do you think they flew in? Max Martin. Max Martin has written songs for every single person that you have ever heard of in your whole life. Every little pop singer that's on the radio in the last, 30 years, Max Martin's been, had his hand in it. I don't know what they're paying that guy. But anyway, he flies in from Sweden. But what's really weird to me is that usually she had handlers and assistants because of her age. She didn't go anywhere by herself. But they said Max Martin wants to meet with you by himself. So you guys are going to go to dinner together alone. She's 15. Why did he want to go to dinner with her alone? I'm not even alluding to anything. I don't have any hot take on this necessarily. I just think it's interesting that they would want her to meet alone with him. I don't understand why that was a necessary element. Anyway, she says they sit down to the restaurant and somehow the table goes up in flame. There's a little candle there, and the waitress, I think, accidentally put the drink menu in the flames or something. So they immediately leap up and they just go. And she says that it was just magic. He was magic, and they started working together. And shortly after that, she flew to Sweden where she could record there. She said, honestly, it didn't really feel any different than New Jersey because she was in that booth from dawn till dark. Same situation. She would not stop. She said that Miss Fee would try to get her to come get some coffee, let's take a break. No, says Brittany. She worked for hours straight. She said her work ethic was strong. I would never come out. If you knew me then, you wouldn't hear from me for days. I would stay in the studio as long as I could, and if anybody wanted to leave, I'd say I wasn't perfect. She says the night that they recorded Baby One More Time, she had been listening to Soft Cell's Tainted Love, and she really loved the sound on that song. So she intentionally stayed up way later than she usually would because she wanted to get her voice really kind of tired and gravelly, and she thought that was a really sexy sound. So she says it worked. She said, when I sang, my voice came out gravelly in a way that sounded more mature and sexier. She's 15. Why is she so consumed with being mature and sexy? I mean, here's the thing. I was 15 one time too. It's crazy to me how much you want to be perceived as a woman. The problem is that there's been no guidance on how to do that in a way that still keeps your dignity intact. You can still be beautiful. You can still be sexy. And you can still be respected. But nobody taught her how to do that. So she says that when the songs were done, someone said, well, what else can you do? Do you want to dance now? And she says, do I want to dance? Hell yeah, I do. So then we go into the making of Baby One More Time. And it's interesting. I don't know that I'm going to read it word for word. I'll just tell it to you. She says that the original concept for Baby One More Time was some kind of futuristic situation in which she was in some kind of Power Rangers outfit. And she said she thought that was lame and that her audience would not relate to that. And so she's the one who came up with the concept of being at school. She was the one who came up with the concept of them being in their school uniforms so that there would be a contrast when they go out and they're dancing in their street clothes. And so she said that they were really awesome in letting her have a say in how that video went. This is the most interesting thing about it though. She says, that's probably the moment in my life when I had the most passion for music. I was unknown, and I had nothing to lose if I messed up. There's so much freedom in being anonymous. I could look at a crowd who'd never seen me before and think, you don't know who I am yet. It was kind of liberating that I didn't really have to care if I made mistakes. She says that for her, performing wasn't about smiling and posing. She almost looked at it like a sport. In the same way her dad had driven her brother relentlessly in sports, that's kind of the way she drove herself in music. She kind of had her dad's voice in her head all the time, just pushing her. Now, after she recorded the song, she had to go on this mall tour. It sounds ridiculous. I mean, so lame. And she had to go to like 26 malls and sort of try to sell her song, but nobody knew her yet. No one knew the song yet. So, I mean, it was pretty embarrassing. But she says that when she was 16, the Baby One More Time single hit stores. The next month, the video premiered, and suddenly I was getting recognized everywhere I went. On January 12, 1999, the album came out and sold over 10 million copies very quickly. I debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart in the US, and I became the first woman to debut with a #1 single and album at the same time. I was so happy, and I could feel my life starting to open up. I didn't have to perform in malls anymore. She toured with NSYNC right after that, which is when she kind of got to hang out with Justin Timberlake again. And she said that at that time, she was always with her dancers or Felicia or one of her two managers, Larry Rudolph and Johnny Wright. She said, I acquired a security guard named Big Rob, who was unbelievably sweet to me. Everything has changed. You know, she was a little nobody from Louisiana before, you know, and being on the Mickey Mouse Club isn't nothing, but I mean, it's no solo career. And now, suddenly, she's like one of the most recognizable names in America. And I mean, when you have gotten to the point where you've got to have your own security team, things have gotten real. She said she became a regular on MTV's Total Request Live. She said Rolling Stone sent David LaChapelle to Louisiana to shoot her for the April cover, and the story was called Inside the Heart, Mind, and Bedroom of a Teen Dream. When the magazine came out, the photos were controversial because the cover shot of me in my underwear holding a Teletubby played up how young I was. My mother seemed concerned, but I knew that I wanted to work with David LaChapelle again. See, this is what I'm saying to you. I said this in the previous video. I'll say this in this video. She does not understand how exploited she is being and how twisted they're taking it with her sexuality and her being so young. Those photos are so weird, and I want to put them on here, but I honestly don't even know if YouTube would like have an issue with it because they couldn't take the cover of her book. So if I put up these photos, I don't know, but you should look them up. Rolling Stone, David LaChapelle, and those photos are whack. There she is standing in like straight lingerie in her bedroom that it's like, it's her legitimate bedroom. It's all of her old dolls that she used to have. It's her laying on her bed with a Teletubby. I mean, it's in bra and panties. Why in the world is she in her panties? Why did that need to happen? Right? I have no idea. And her mom, like I said last time, all her mom was like, I don't know if I like this. I don't think this feels kind of funny, Brittany. Do we want this? And Brittany's always like, yes, I want to work with that guy again. He made me feel sexy. And so her mom's like, okay, well, if that's what you want to do. No, but it's like, is anybody gonna put the brakes on this? Okay. In the wild, wacky world in which if my daughter ever became really well known out of nowhere suddenly, which would never happen because I would lay down and die before that happened for her sake. But a photographer came up in my house and was like, okay, now for this shoot, we're going to have you take off all your clothes, stand in your panties and, you know, surround yourself with dolls. I'd be like, there's a door, sir. Don't ever show your face here again. I mean, can you even imagine? Where was Lynn? Well, David's in there clicking away, you know, surrounding her with Teletubby dolls and these little porcelain baby dolls. Where's Lynn? Quite frankly, where's Jamie the dad? When's he ever going to show his face? He's going to show his face when he thinks it's time to line his own pocket. Why isn't he up in that place being like, ripping that photographer right out of that bedroom and being like, Brittany, put some clothes on and you get out of here? Her parents don't care about her, like at all. Anyway, every day was something new, she says. She said she was constantly meeting all these really exciting people and that at one point she met songwriter and singer Paula Cole at a party in New York. She said that Paula was 14 years older than her, but she just loved her so much, just her look. Brittany was like just all over her look. She says she was the smallest thing with the curliest brown hair flowing down her back. I had no idea who the hell she was, only that she was beautiful with this incredible look and energy. Years later, I figured out that she was also the singer of songs I loved. When I first heard her voice, I thought she looked completely different than what she actually did. Putting her angelic face to her super dirty words on Feelin' Love, her tiny body with the strength of her voice on I Don't Want to Wait, I realized how powerful it can be when women defy expectations. And really, this is like what I'm talking about when I say she's desperately looking for some kind of a guidance on how to be in this world. You know, it's just so strange goals. I mean, there's just this feeling like she's groping for a set of values, some kind of principles, some kind of a way to be, you know, and it's like, oh, so I can sing really dirty lyrics and still be like girly girly. Okay, maybe that's a way I can be, you know, like I can defy expectations. I can look innocent, but also be really edgy. Maybe that's a thing I can do. And she's just all the day looking around for a way to be. And sadly, there's just not a lot of role models out there that are showing her a positive way to be. Chapter 10, Justin Timberlake enters the picture. Justin Timberlake and I stayed in touch after the Mickey Mouse Club, and we enjoyed spending time together on the NSYNC tour. Having shared that experience at such a young age gave us a shorthand. We had so much in common. We met up when I was on tour and started hanging out during the day before shows and then after shows too. And pretty soon I realized that I was head over heels in love with him. So in love with him, it was pathetic. When he and I were anywhere in the same vicinity, his mom even said this. We were like magnets. We just find each other immediately and stick together. You couldn't explain the way we were together. It was weird, to be honest, how in love we were. His band NSYNC was what people back then called So Pimp. They were white boys, but they loved hip hop. To me, that's what separated them from the Backstreet Boys, who seemed very conscientiously to position themselves as a white group. Okay, you guys, just a second. Just sit down. I had not heard this part of the book yet. Apparently, this was a big part of the book. Like, everyone was laughing at this part. This was new to me, and I busted out when I first read this, because it is so lame. This is where I was already like, Justin, I never liked you. Now I really don't like you. Okay, get ready. So she says NSYNC was a white group that was all about the hip hop, right? Okay, I'm not against people, like, let's mix genres, okay? Like, you can do your thing. Do your thing if you want to. Just because you're white doesn't mean you can't like hip hop. Same thing. Like when I read the Jada book and she's like, I was black, but I really liked heavy metal. Okay, that's not a thing. You can do whatever you want. Can you do this next thing though? No. So she says that NSYNC hung out with black artists. Sometimes I thought they tried too hard to fit in. You could say that again. One day, Jay and I were in New York, going to parts of town I'd never been to before. Walking our way was a guy with a huge blinged out medallion. He was flanked by 2 giant security guards. Jay got all excited and said so loud, "Oh yeah, faux shiz, genuine. What's up, homie?" I mean, that is so lame. That is so embarrassing. I could hardly read it. I mean, I feel like my face is red even as we speak. Anyway, after Genuine walked away, Felicia did an impression of Jay. "Oh yeah, faux shiz, Genuine." Jay wasn't even embarrassed. He just took it and looked at her like, okay, F you, Fee. I think Jay did care if he's gonna shoot Fee a look like that, but whatever. Anyway, that was the trip where he got his first necklace, a big T for Timberlake. I had a hard time being as carefree as he seemed. I couldn't help but notice that the questions he got asked by talk show hosts were different from the ones they asked me. Everyone kept making strange comments about my breasts, wanting to know whether or not I had had plastic surgery. I wonder sometimes if talk show hosts and things like that demean women in a way they don't demean men. Because women do have incredible power because they're so beautiful. Like, a woman's beauty, I think, is debilitating to a man. I think some men resent the fact that beautiful women disarm them. And so if they can belittle a woman to make it seem as though she's nothing more than a pair of breasts, then they feel like they can get their power back from having been sort of distracted and taken aback by how beautiful she is. You know, and I'm not saying that that's like always true, but I feel like that's one of the reasons why women are so many times degraded and sort of just reduced to their body. I think it's a way of attacking beauty. I think beauty can scare people because it's something that they want that they can't have and they don't like that feeling. So just degrade it. It's almost like sour grapes in a way. Anyway, continuing. That's a side note. Press could be uncomfortable, but at a award show, I felt real joy. The child in me got a thrill seeing Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, and it was also exciting, she says, when Lenny Kravitz came in. She kept thinking, legends, legends everywhere I look. And she started running into Madonna all over the world. I mean, her life is just changing at a rapid pace. She said, I would do shows in Germany and Italy, and we'd end up performing at the same European awards show. We'd greet each other as friends. She says, at one award show, I knocked on Mariah Carey's dressing room door. She opened it and outpoured the most beautiful, otherworldly light. You know how we all have ring lights now? Well, more than 20 years ago, only Mariah Carey knew about ring lights. And no, I don't just say her first name. To me, she's always going to be Mariah Carey. I asked if we could take a photo together and tried to take one where we were standing, and she said, no, come stand there here, darling. This is my light. This is my side. I want you to stand here so I can get on my good side, girl. She kept saying that in her deep, beautiful voice. My good side, girl. My good side, girl. I did everything Mariah told me to do, and we took the photo. Of course, she was completely right about everything. The photo looked incredible. I know I won an award that night, but I couldn't even tell you what it was. The perfect photo was Mariah Carey. That was the real prize. See, this is what I am saying to you. Britney does not understand that she adds value, that people would want to know her, that the way she idolizes Mariah Carey would be the way people would idolize her. Britney just wanders through the world, sort of honestly thinking of herself as an afterthought, of something that nobody would really want, as like somebody who's like singing and dancing, but like she doesn't seem to understand that her fame is a representative of how much people like her. Even if she knows that intellectually, she does not know that in her real being. She seems to believe that this legend can tell her what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And I'm not saying you have to walk into somebody's dressing room and be objectionable or, pick a fight or be like, no, we're not standing. I'm not saying that, but the way she idolizes Mariah Carey, as though Mariah Carey had the right, had the hierarchy says that Mariah can talk to her that way, and that she accepts it, and not only accepts it, but admires it. I'm like, but Britney, don't you understand? Like, you were the princess of pop. You had your own clout. You don't have to take it from people. But she doesn't get that. I mean, she seems to have no conceptualization of her own success. Yeah, I mean, she goes on to say, people kept calling me the princess of pop. But I don't think she felt that, because what she really felt was all the negativity. She's starting to get some blowback now at this point. And for a people pleaser, and for somebody who lives and dies on words of affirmation or the absence of affirmation, people's negativity is so loud, she can't hear the fact that she's popular. Doesn't matter that she's going on tours, selling out arenas. Doesn't matter that she is making more money than she even knew was possible to make. Doesn't matter that she's running in the same circles as all the most famous celebrities in the musical world. Doesn't matter, because all she can hear is the negativity she's starting to get. She says that at the 2000 VMAs, she sang the Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction, and then Oops, I Did It Again, while going from a suit and hat to a glittery bikini top and tight pants, my long hair down. Wade Robson choreographed it. He always knew how to make me look strong and feminine at the same time. During the dance breaks in the cage, I did poses that made me look girly in the middle of an aggressive performance. But she says later, MTV sat me down in front of a monitor and made me watch strangers in Times Square give their opinion on my performance. Some of them said I did a good job, but an awful lot of them seemed to be focused on my having worn a skimpy outfit. They said I was dressing too sexy and thereby setting a bad example for kids. The cameras were trained on me, waiting to see how I would react to this criticism, if I could take it well, or if I would cry. Did I do something wrong? I wondered. I just danced my heart out on the awards show. I never said I was a role model. All I wanted to do was sing and dance. The MTV show host kept pushing, what did I think of the commenters telling me I was corrupting America's youth? Finally, I said, some of them are very sweet, but I'm not the children's parents. I just gotta be me. I know there are going to be people out there. I know not everyone's gonna like me. But it shook me up, and it was my first real taste of a backlash that would last years. It felt like every time I turned on an entertainment show, yet another person was taking shots at me saying I wasn't authentic. I never quite knew what all these critics thought I was supposed to be doing. A Bob Dylan impression? Why did everyone treat me, even when I was a teenager, like I was dangerous? This is what I mean when I say that she's constantly confused by the reaction she's getting from other people. For her, she's like, I just want to sing and dance. Did I do something wrong? But I don't understand how she's confused by this. She's coming out dressing like a little hoa. I mean, come on, Brittany, you have no clothes on. Like you've got like this little sparkly top, your midriff's out, you're gyrating all over the place. I mean, for her to be like, I don't understand what's wrong. Why don't people like that? I'm just dancing. I'm just trying to be me. You could just try to be you in your bedroom, but that's not really what you want either. I mean, you want the fame that comes with it. So, and with fame comes the fact that some people aren't going to like what you're putting out there. And I know she says, yeah, I know everyone's not going to like me, but she's confused why people don't like it. And she doesn't seem to be able to connect the fact that what she's putting out there is sexual, it's tantalizing, it's like a lust generating performance. She acts like, I just went out and did ballet and I don't understand why anybody has a problem with that. No, dancing in a cage. I mean, it's all just very stripper vibes here. I just feel like there's genuine confusion and like a disconnect as to why people are viewing her as a sexualized object when she is presenting herself as that. She's coming out, barely any clothes on, gyrating across the stage, dancing in cages, putting her body on display, and then being like, oh, just sucks. Everyone thinks I'm just a sex object. But I'm like, are you actively trying to make people think you aren't? Like, why can't people think that I'm smart? Are you showing them you're smart? When do we ever get to see another side of you? You're performing songs begging for sex. You're performing songs, acting like, whoops, did it again. I mean, are these behaviors that seem intelligent? I'm not even saying Britney's not intelligent. I'm just saying, if you show everybody one side of you, you can't be offended that they don't assume the other side of you. So she goes on to say that she noticed more and more older men in the audience, and sometimes it would freak her out to see them leering at her like some kind of Lolita fantasy, especially when no one could seem to think of me as both sexy and capable, or talented and hot. If I was sexy, they seemed to think I must be stupid. If I was hot, I couldn't possibly be talented. She says, I wish back then I'd known the Dolly Parton joke. I'm not offended by all the dumb blonde jokes because I know I'm not dumb. And I also know that I'm not blonde. My real hair color, said Brittany, is black. Trying to find ways to protect my heart from criticism and to keep the focus on what was important, I started reading religious books like the Conversations with God series by Neale Donald Walsch. And I also started taking Prozac. I mean, it's like, that's like the end of the chapter. It's like a bombshell comment / throwaway comment. Who prescribed it? What were the events leading up to getting on Prozac? Was it just like somebody scrawled you a prescription and you just started taking it? Was there any guidance there? Who were your medical professionals saying, we think that this is what you need to do? What a Band-Aid solution on a life problem. Her entire world is chaotic. Everything about her life is wild. And instead of being like, hey, we need to take things down a notch, or we need to like maybe get you a life coach like me, maybe get a counselor or a therapist, like something, Prozac. Just give her Prozac. We got to get the show on the road, literally. And I just think it's crazy. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. We're going to continue on. Chapter 11. Now, it should be noted that Britney, in all of her success, is now a household name. And in fact, she's making so much money that she ends up paying for all of her father's, gets him out of debt. He's in a mountain of debt. She takes care of that, and she buys the family a home. So she is trying to take care of her family. She's trying to stay on top. She's like this household name. She was performing at the Super Bowl now. She's on the Forbes list of most powerful celebrities. On the next year, she was the #1 overall on the Forbes list. She's just constantly making headlines. At the 2001 MTV Video Music Awards, she is singing I'm a Slave for You. Again, not exactly the title of a song that's going to make one think of you as an intellectual. And this time, she's got a prop that is an actual snake. And this iconic moment, she said, was so terrifying for her. And who among us has not seen the photo of Britney Spears at the MTV Music Awards with that huge, giant, yellow-white snake? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's just like everything. She was constantly topping the last thing she'd done. All eyes were always on her to see what she was going to do next. She says, the first time I saw the snake was when they brought it to a little back room of the Metropolitan Opera House in Manhattan, where we would be doing the show. The girl who handed it over to me was even smaller than me. She looked so young and was very tiny with blonde hair, and I couldn't believe they didn't have some big guy in charge. I remember thinking, you're letting us two little munchkins handle this huge snake? But there we were, and there was no going back. She lifted up the snake and put it over my head and around me. To be honest, I was a little scared. That snake was a huge animal, yellow and white, crinkly, gross looking. It was okay because the girl who gave it to me was right there, plus a snake handler and a bunch of other people. Everything changed though when I actually had to do the song on stage with the snake. On stage, I was in performance mode. I'm in a costume and there's nobody else there but me. Once again, the little munchkin came to me, handed me that huge snake, and all I knew was to look down because I felt like if I looked up and caught its eye, it would kill me. In my head, I was just saying, just perform, just use your legs, perform. But what nobody knows is that as I was singing, the snake brought its head right around to my face, right up to me, and started hissing at me. You didn't see that shot on the TV, but in real life, I was thinking, are you effing serious right now? The effing snake's tongue is flicking out at me right now. And finally, I got to the part where I could hand it back. Thank God. Do you see what I'm saying? Britney's really funny in this. I mean, it's a funny book. It's a good read. And I just think, I mean, it's just wild. She's going from that, and then she's going over to the Pepsi commercials, and now she's the face of Pepsi, and she's doing a whole series of commercials for them. There's no name that she can't work with now. She just finished doing a performance with Michael Jackson for the 30th anniversary of his solo career. You know, so it's like, there's no name that's too big for her to stand next to. But she doesn't even get that. I mean, she doesn't feel that. For her, she's just like this little girl from Louisiana who's still trying to make it, you know, and still thinks that she is the least important person in the room. And it's not because I think that she's necessarily so humble. I think it's because she really doesn't believe. Because humility, I think, is born from the fact that you could be proud of yourself and make everybody bow down to you and be a diva, but you choose not to, because what's the point of that? Like, humility comes from when you could be a big deal and you choose not to act like it. What she's experiencing is not humility, it's degradation. It's so many years of feeling degraded by her family, by her own mental thoughts, shame, both from her family and both from the sense that, you know, maybe I didn't do the right thing here. Constantly the little voice in her head saying, work harder, you're not enough, you know, and having that reinforced by actual people in her life. That she walks into a room and doesn't think that she's as good as everybody else. And that's not humility. Like I said, that's degradation from years of feeling small. And there's no amount of success that's going to help her to realize that she actually has value, because she needs to have somebody explain that to her. She's not going to come to that conclusion on her own at this point. Because here she is, having had massive success, and she can't feel it. Okay, now we're going to get into a part of the book that was my first, I think, true introduction to the fact that she is mentally unwell. And that this memoir, if it was, again, aimed at trying to convince us that she is a well person, this is where the book begins to fail her on that front. She says that she was in her first movie, Crossroads, and that she's supposed to be playing this good girl named Lucy Wagner, but that the experience was not easy for her. In her pursuit of doing her best, she says that she took on the persona of this Lucy character, but then could not get out of it. She said, I think I started method acting, only I didn't know how to break out of my character. I really became this other person. Some people do method acting, but they're usually aware of the fact that they're doing it. But I didn't have any separation at all. She said that it's embarrassing to say, but that it's like a cloud or something came over me, and I just became this girl named Lucy. When the camera came on, I was her. And then I couldn't tell the difference between when the camera was on and when it wasn't. I know that seems stupid, but it's the truth. I took it that seriously. I took it seriously to the point where Justin said, "Why are you walking like that? Who are you?" All I can say is it's a good thing that Lucy was a sweet girl writing poems about how she was not a girl, not yet a woman, and not a serial killer. I ended up walking differently, carrying myself differently, talking differently. I was someone else for months while I filmed Crossroads. And still to this day, I bet the girls I shot that movie with think she's a little quirky. If they thought that, they were right. I was a baby, just like the character. I should have played myself on camera, but I was so eager to do a good job that I kept trying to go deep with this character. I had been me my whole life, and I wanted to try something different. I should have said to myself, it's a teen road movie. It's not that deep. Honestly, just have a good time. After the movie wrapped, one of my girlfriends from a club in LA came to visit me. We went to CVS. I swear to God, I walked into the store, and as I talked to her while we shopped, I finally came back to myself. When I came outside again, I was cured of the spell that movie had cast. It was so strange. My little spirit showed back up in my body. That trip to buy makeup with a friend was like waving some magic wand. What? What? What did we just read? This line is so interesting. I had been me my whole life, and I wanted to try something different. And that is what I'm saying to you. Brittany is walking through life looking for a representative, looking for somebody who she can go to and be like, hey, will you show me how to be what you are? Because I don't know how to be. I don't know how to do anything except for get on that stage and sing and dance. And when I do that, I feel whole because I have an identity. On stage, I am this persona. I am sexy. I am, I've got this huge personality. I can sing, I can dance. I know I rule in that realm. But as soon as I'm off that stage, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be. I don't know how to get people to accept me. And I think that being in this movie was like a chance to act somebody else and to try something on and to be this good girl. Because, like I've said before, she had a lot of shame from her youth. I think her parents didn't teach her what to do. They shamed her for what she didn't do. So if she was being wild with boys, it's because they never taught her how to not be wild. They never taught her how to make good choices with friends, never taught her what her worth was as a woman, that she didn't need to sell herself for some little crumbs off some boy's table. They would get mad at her when she did the wrong thing. They didn't teach her how to do the right thing. So now she's walking through life trying to figure out, well, what do I do? And so I think that's why this experience making this movie took her by storm and why she could not break out of that character, because she was ripe for the plucking. She was exactly at the point in life in which she would get lost in a character because she desperately wanted to be in a character. She wanted to be in a different persona. When she gets on stage, that's what she's doing. She's play acting a different person. And she has subconsciously realized, I feel safe when I'm not me. So why wouldn't she take this opportunity to pretend that she's Lucy Wagner? But it really scared her that she got in that character but then couldn't get out of it. She says that once she came back to herself, she says, I was pissed. And I thought, oh my God, what have I been doing the past few months? Who was I? That was pretty much the beginning of the end of my acting career, and I was relieved. The Notebook casting came down to me and Rachel McAdams. And even though it would have been fun to reconnect with Ryan Gosling after our time at the Mickey Mouse Club, I'm glad I didn't do it. If I had, instead of working on my album In the Zone, I'd have been acting like a 1940s heiress day and night. She says that she's sure that if she had just gotten some help when she was acting, that she could have found somebody who could have shown her how to do it and do it successfully. I imagine there are people in the acting field who have dealt with something like that, where they had trouble separating themselves from a character. But I feel like they keep perspective. I hope I never get close to that occupational hazard again. Living that way, being half yourself and half a fictional character, is messed up. After a while, you don't know what's real anymore. What I think is so ironic about that statement, and I don't know if she really meant it to be ironic, is the fact that that's what she's doing now. And that's what she's been doing her whole life, is what I mean. Like, at this point in the story, isn't that what her whole life is? To get on stage and be a character and then get off and not be? Isn't she already being half in and half out and doesn't know who she is? And it's interesting to me that she can see that's really messed up, but she didn't equate that with who she was as a performer. Okay, next chapter, chapter 12. She says, when I think back on this time, I was truly living the dream, living my dream. My tours took me all over the world. And she says that she was just able to be free, but there wasn't necessarily judgment in her freedom. Like now when she wants to act free on Instagram, dancing and carrying on, there's a lot of blowback that comes from that. People call her crazy, but then people just called her young. So she talks about this time when they went to Rio. And she says, at night, my dancers, there were 8 of them, 2 girls, the rest guys. And I went skinny dipping in the ocean, singing and dancing and laughing with each other. We talked for hours under the moon. It was so beautiful. Exhausted, we headed into the steam rooms where we talked some more. I was able to be a little bit more sinful then. Skinny dipping, staying up all night talking, nothing over the top. It was a taste of rebellion and freedom, but I was just having fun and being a 19-year-old. She is young. I don't know the wisdom of skinny dipping with 8 guys that you work with every day, probably is going to create some dynamics that are difficult to navigate. 19 or no, I think that that's probably not a super wise choice. But again, there's like, I mean, it's almost like she was emancipated at the age of 15, because I know she had Miss V hanging around, but Miss V doesn't really do anything but be her friend. So she didn't have anybody. She had no raising up until the age of 15. Then she goes off to, at 15, like touring the world. And there's nobody that's going to tell her no. Even though I desperately think she wanted somebody to give her some parameters and some boundaries. Nobody's willing to do it because she's Britney Spears. And the ironic thing is that she might be Britney Spears, but she doesn't know it. She would have desperately and willingly accepted any kind of tidbit anybody had to offer her. She says that when she looks back at her career, one of the things she wishes that she had done was to branch out more. She says she stuck with what was safe. And so that meant that when offers would come along to try this or that, she would turn it down because she just didn't know if she'd be good at it. And she was really afraid after that one acting scenario that that would happen to her again. She said that she was constantly getting offers for more movies, but she wouldn't do them. Now, see, I'm going to tell you something right now. This is a surprise to me. I honestly thought that she hadn't gotten any offers to do any more movies, because I remember when Crossroads came out. Now, I didn't see it, but I remember the reviews for it. They were not stunning. If I recall correctly, they were sort of debilitating. And so I just thought that her career had gotten kicked out from underneath her because that movie was so bad. I had no idea that there were people who wanted her to be in more movies, but that she had turned it down. One of the things they wanted her to be in was Chicago. Remember Chicago? She says that, looking back on it now, I wish I would have taken that role. And I should have done it. She says, and this is so interesting, I had power back then. I wish I'd used it more thoughtfully and been more rebellious. Chicago would have been fun. It's all dance pieces, my favorite kind. Prissy, girly, follies, pussycat doll-like, serve off your corset moves. I wish I'd taken that offer. I would have gotten to play a villain who kills a man and sings and dances while doing it. It's interesting. I probably could have found ways, gotten training to keep from becoming a Chicago character the way I had with Lucy in Crossroads. I wish I'd tried something different. If only I'd been brave enough not to stay in my safe zone and done more things that weren't just within what I knew. But I was committed to not rocking the boat and to not complaining even when something upset me. Where were the grown-ups? I know she's 19. But because she has had nobody telling her what to do this whole time, where are the people who are like helping her figure out her career? Larry the lawyer, is he the one that's supposed to be helping out? Because Larry is failing, you know? I know that I guess nobody else would say that, you know, he's failing. She's like the biggest celebrity, the biggest name in, you know, pop music. I get it. She is having success, but like they should have encouraged her to branch off, because like, can she be a singer her whole life? I mean, I guess you could be, but this kind of a singer, this, you know, ripping your clothes off, gyrating all over the stage. I mean, look at what happened to Madonna. She looks like something from another planet, quite frankly, at this point. And she's prancing all over stage with this big fake ass now, and she looks ridiculous. Something happened to her face, something happened to her body. That is what happens when people try to keep that like overtly sexy image that they had as, you know, young 20s. That's just not something that you can keep doing, nor do most people want to. So if she had branched out, that would have been fantastic, but there was nobody to guide her. Okay, let's talk about the thing we really want to talk about. Justin Timberlake. I've been waiting and waiting to get to this part. She says, in my personal life, I was so happy. Justin and I lived together in Orlando. We shared a gorgeous, airy, 2-story house with a tile roof and a swimming pool out back. Even though we were both working a lot, we'd make time to be home together. I always came back every few months, so Justin and I could be together for 2 weeks, sometimes even 2 months at a time. That was our home base. She says that one time her family came and they brought Jamie Lynn. Oh, Jamie Lynn. This is the start of when she starts talking about Jamie Lynn. She said they went to FAO Schwartz at Point Orlando. The whole store was closed down for them, and she said that her sister got a miniature convertible car that had actual doors that opened. She said that child in that car was unlike anything else. This adorable little girl driving around in a miniature red Mercedes. Adorable now. She said that's how we all were with Jamie Lynn. You see it, you like it, you want it, you get it. As far as I could tell, her world was the Ariana Grande song 7 Rings come to life. When I was growing up, we didn't have any money. My prized possessions were my Madame Alexander dolls. There were dozens to choose from. Their eyelids went up and down, and they all had names, some from fictional characters or historical figures, like Scarlett O'Hara or Queen Elizabeth. I had the girls from Little Women. When I got my 15th doll, you would have thought I'd hit the lottery. She says, that was a time in my life that I was so in love with Justin, just smitten. I don't know if when you're younger, love's a different thing, but what Justin and I had was special. She goes on to say that their love was a sort of thing where they would just do stupid things for each other, even if everybody was watching. And that brings us to the denim on denim look they did. She says in the South, moms love to round up the kids and say, listen, we're going to church today and we're all going to color coordinate. She said that she still can't believe that Justin agreed to it, but she found out that he was going to wear denim to the 2001 American Music Awards. And she said, we could match. Let's do denim on denim. And first, honestly, she was just joking. She said, I didn't think my stylist was actually going to do it. And I never thought Justin was going to do it with me. But they both went all in. The stylist brought Justin's all denim outfit, including a denim hat to match his denim jacket and denim pants. When he put it on, I thought, whoa, I guess we're really doing this. And she said that even now, knowing that it was tacky, she still thinks it was pretty great in its own way. She says she loves to see it parodied at Halloween when people will do the whole Britney and Justin denim on denim look. And the reason she points this story out is that she said, I've heard Justin get flack for the look. On one podcast where they were teasing him about it, he said, you do a lot of things when you're young and in love. And that's exactly right. We were giddy, and those outfits reflected that. Okay, well, they were giddy at one point. It's not going to stay that way. She said there was a couple of times during our relationship when I knew Justin had cheated on me. Especially because I was so infatuated and so in love, I let it go, even though the tabloids seemed determined to rub my face in it. She's so in love, but she's so scared of holding people accountable for the way they act against her. She just swallows it all. Like, oh, you're going to be mean to me? Okay, I'll accept that. Just don't leave. She just allows people to abuse her so terribly and so badly. But she's not going to say anything about it because if she does, they might leave. And it would be, in her mind, it's better just to take the hit and keep the person around who says they love you, but they don't love you. If Justin loved her, he would not be running around like this, and in a way that she could even catch him. It's like he wanted her to break up with him. He's not even trying to hide it. So one of the times, and she says, when NSYNC went to London in 2000, photographers caught him with one of the girls from All Saints in a car. I never said anything. At the time, we'd been together for a year. But then another time, they were in Las Vegas. And she says, one of my dancers who'd been hanging out with him told me that he gestured toward a girl and said, yeah, man, I hit that last night. I don't want to say who he was talking about because she's actually very popular and she's married with kids now. And I don't want her to feel bad. But her friend, who, by the way, was her dancer, so it's like Justin wanted this to get back to her. She says, my friend was shocked and believed Justin was only saying it because he was high and felt like bragging. But she says that I let it all go, but clearly he slept around, and there was always rumors about him with dancers and groupies. She said it was one of those things where but you just don't say anything. I mean, just on a personal health point though, you got to hold this guy to account because you're sleeping with him too. So, what's he bringing home to you from all the groupies? And that's when I can realize too that she just had no sense of her own safety. She would put her own safety on the line to keep the peace. He's sleeping around with groupies and then getting in your bed and you're not going to say anything about it? That's how little she valued herself. She goes on to say that because she knew that he was cheating on her, she decided to cheat on him. She says, not a lot, one time, with Wade Robson. He was her choreographer. She said, we were out one night and we went to a Spanish bar and we danced, and then I made out with him that night. But she told Justin about it. She went to Justin and she said, I have only eyes for you. And she said there was one exception, and she admitted it. And he acted like he was really taking the high road in that conversation. He's like, well, we're both young. We'll just chalk it up to one of those things that sometimes happens when you're just being silly. And she said, Justin and I moved past it and stayed together. Yeah, well, seemingly you moved past it. Of course he was willing to offer you all this grace for it. He's over there full on sleeping with people. You admitted you made out with somebody, both not great scenarios, but if we're going to weigh which is worse, probably sleeping with dozens of groupies. I think it's outrageous that he would act like, oh yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's hard to hear, but we're young and sometimes we do stupid stuff, so I'll forgive you. It's like, oh, thanks so much, you know? So are we going to talk yet about the fact that you've cheated on me so many times you probably don't even know? I mean, no, of course that never comes up. But what's even worse is he used this confession that she had made to him, and he's just going to pocket that and use that for a later date. So to her face, he forgives her, and it's like, we don't have to break up. We can stay together. I mean, it's hard that you told me that, but thanks for being honest. And then later he's going to act like she did some egregious thing to him, completely covering up the fact that he was the one in the wrong 100% this entire relationship. So after they get past that, she finds out that she's pregnant. Well, it was a surprise, she says, but for me, it wasn't a tragedy. I loved Justin so much, I always expected us to have a family together one day. This would just be much earlier than I'd anticipated. And besides, what was done was done. Yeah, what are you going to do about it now? You two have created a life. So what are you going to do about it now? You know, well, Justin's got an answer. Let's snuff it out. He definitely wasn't happy about the pregnancy. He said we weren't ready for a baby in our lives and that we were way too young. But you guys have more money than anybody could ever imagine. The two of those two, I mean, it's like people say we're too young to have a baby because they don't know how they're going to carry on with life, how they can manage the responsibilities and the financial aspect of it. Having a baby is not a tragedy by any stretch of the imagination. The hardship comes in when I don't know how I'm going to financially pay to have this baby and I need help that I don't have. That's what having a baby, that's the hard part of having a baby. But those are not the things that you can't actually fix, you know? And that actually goes for anybody, And this isn't the podcast to talk about all of that, but it's like, quite seriously, if you find yourself pregnant, there are so many resources for you. There's so much help that you can get and that people want to give you. So it's never a tragedy. The spark of life is never a tragedy. But we live in a society in which we're constantly told, you have to stop doing everything you want to do when you want to do it. Oh, you don't want that. A baby's going to totally rain on your parade. Don't do that. Just be done with it. Just be done with it. And you never have to think about it again. But it doesn't work like that. And even as Brittany's telling us this story, we know it doesn't work like this. Like, I think that this was the beginning of the end for her as far as her being able to hold it together. She says that regardless of the fact that they were filthy rich, she allowed him to convince her that they couldn't handle having a baby. And she says, if he didn't want to be a father, I didn't feel like I had much of a choice. I wouldn't want to push him into something that he didn't want. Our relationship was too important to me. And so I'm sure people will hate me for this, but I agreed not to have the baby. She says, abortion was something I never would have imagined choosing for myself, but given the circumstances, that is what we did. I don't know if that was the right decision. If it had been left up to me alone, I never would have done it. And yet Justin was so sure that he didn't want to be a father. We also decided on something that in retrospect wound up being, in my view, wrong. And that was that I should not go to a doctor or to a hospital to have the abortion. It was important that no one find out about the pregnancy or the abortion, which meant doing everything at home. We didn't even tell my family. The only person who knew besides Justin and me was Felicia, who was always on hand to help me. But I was told, it might hurt a little bit, but you'll be fine. That lie, I think, is the thing that bothers me so very much about the abortion pill, along with a lot of other things. But that lie is so wrong. How are you going to hand somebody a pill that it won't hurt and that'll just be a little bit of bleeding? You know, you might feel some cramps. You're giving birth alone, and what comes out is a tiny baby. I mean, it's very clearly human. And even a little 8-week-old is very clearly human. It's not like a tissue. It's not like just a bloody mass, you know? And it's so shocking. I mean, I've read so many accounts of women who have been sold the lie that this pill is just a nothing. It's gonna be like a heavy period. You might be a little crampy. And then women are laying on the bathroom floor trying to pass this. And then when you do, you find out, hey, it wasn't just a period. you know? And it's always, I mean, there's so many accounts of women being utterly shocked by what they ended up experiencing because nothing was told to them as far as what it was actually going to be like. The deception is so wild to me. And if it's just okay to just take this pill and it's nothing, okay, well, then why are you being so shady about what it's actually going to be like when I experience it? Why are doctors not telling people what it's actually going to be like? Why is it so shrouded in mystery? If it's all just okay and it's not going to leave a scar and you're not going to feel anything and it's not a big deal and it's just a period. It isn't. And Britney goes on to say that it wasn't. She said, on the appointed day with only Felicia and Justin there, I took the little pills. Soon I started having excruciating cramps. I went into the bathroom and I stayed there for hours, lying on the floor, sobbing and screaming. They should have numbed me with something, I thought. I wanted some kind of anesthesia. I wanted to go to the doctor. I was so scared. I lay there wondering if I was going to die. When I tell you it was painful, I can't begin to describe it. The pain was unbelievable. I went down to the ground on my knees holding the toilet. For a long time, I couldn't move. To this day, it's one of the most agonizing things I have ever experienced in my life. Still, they didn't take me to the hospital. Justin came into the bathroom and lay on the floor with me. And at some point, he thought maybe music would help. So he got his guitar and lay there with me, strumming it. And I can tell you right now that nothing would have made me just out of my mind with rage to be laying there trying to pass the child that he didn't want, and then he's got the gall to lay there and strum on his guitar, trying to make the moment about him and his musical talent. Get out of here with that. Take your little sorry guitar and go away. You know, let me just lay here with you and just strum this. Why would that help? I kept crying and sobbing until it was all over. It took hours. And I don't remember how it ended, but I do, 20 years later, remember the pain of it and the fear. After that, I was messed up for a while, especially because I still love Justin so much. It was insane how much I loved him, and for me, it was unfortunate. I should have seen the breakup coming, but I didn't. Yeah, I mean, like, what kind of a guy is like, hey, I have every resource in the world, there's no reason for us not to have a baby, and then just be like, but we're not going to. I don't want a kid with you. I mean, if he doesn't want to have kids with you and like you're expecting, he's not the one for you. He doesn't love you. I mean, he hasn't loved her this whole time, cheating on her like this. Like all of the cheating, and then you get pregnant and he's like, kill it. He doesn't love you. So, but she's not in the mental space to be able to hear that he doesn't love her. She can't even take that in. Clearly she can't take it in because all of the indications, I mean, it's not like sitting around with your girlfriends being like, he did this and I don't really know what it means. He's cheated on you with groupies constantly and knows you know about it. He's telling people so that they'll tell you. The tabloids are telling you. Then you get pregnant. He's like, I don't want it. He's screaming to you, I want it to be over. But again, she's incapable of accepting that message. Well, remember that little tidbit she gave him? Hey, I did make out with this one guy. I'm really sorry. I only have eyes for you. Will you forgive me? Yes, Brittany, it's hard to hear, but I do forgive you. Well, he didn't. He took it and he was like, yes, ammunition. So he starts working on his solo album, Justified. Now, Justin was having a hard time with a solo career. He's trying to break away from NSYNC and do his own thing, but he was having a hard time. Well, how are you going to make it so that you can become rich and famous really fast and as a solo artist? Well, you use and abuse the relationship you just had with a super famous person. She says, when Justin began making his first solo album, Justified, he started being very standoffish with me. I think that was because he decided to use me as ammunition for his record. And so it made it awkward for him to be around me, staring at him with all that affection and devotion. Ultimately, he ended our relationship by text message while I was on the set for the video for Overprotected Remix by Darkchild. After seeing the message, as I sat in my trailer between takes, I had to go back out and dance. For as much as Justin hurt me, there was a huge foundation of love. And when he left me, I was devastated. When I say devastated, I mean I could barely speak for months. Whenever anyone asked me about him, all I could do was cry. I don't know if I was clinically in shock, but it felt that way. Hey, sweet Brittany, I mean, yeah, no wonder you're devastated. You killed your baby for this man so he would stay with you, and then he left anyway. How could you not be devastated? Everyone who knew me thought something was wrong with me, and really wrong. I went back to Kentwood and I couldn't talk to my family or friends. I barely left the house. I was that messed up. I lay in my bed and stared at the ceiling. Justin flew out to Louisiana to visit me. He brought me a long letter he'd written and framed. How grandiose. What an egomaniac to write a letter and then frame it like, I know you're going to want to keep this. She said, though, that she still has it under her bed. And at the end it said, and she says, it makes me want to cry to think about it, I can't breathe without you. And those are the last words in it. Reading that, I thought, damn, he's a good writer. Because that was exactly how I felt. It almost felt like I was suffocating, like I couldn't breathe after all that had happened. The thing is, though, even before I saw him and read the letter, I didn't come out of the trance. He did all that. He came there to see me, and I still couldn't talk to him or anybody. Brittany, don't give him credit for this. He feels guilty for what he did. He's trying to placate his own conscience. But even in all of the actions of it, what's he trying to do? Is he trying to rekindle the romance? What kind of bravado is this? To show up with a letter that he's framed that's like, I can't breathe without you. But he's not trying to rekindle the romance. He's not trying to get back together with you. He's trying to make it okay to himself that he did this to you, that he used you, destroyed you so he could keep on with his own career. You know, and you're over there like, I mean, he tried so hard. I was just in a bad place. It was hard to concentrate on what he was saying. But yeah, you're in a bad place because the guy cheated on you for years, then forced you to get an abortion. And then I was like, by the way, I'm going to use that little nugget of a confession you gave me so my career can explode and yours can implode. Them's the break. Sorry, Brittany. I mean, what in the world? So she's struggling. She's struggling after this breakup. I mean, it sends her reeling, but it's not just the breakup, it's the abortion too. I mean, she says she wasn't right after that abortion for a really long time. And then of course, Justin turns on her. So she says, even though the last thing I wanted to do was perform, I still had tour dates left in my contract. So I went back out to finish them. All I wanted was to get off the road and to have days and nights all by myself. At the time she was doing this Dream Within a Dream tour, which she said was amazing. The sets, the choreography, everything was amazing. And she had loved it at first. But now I can't keep slogging through this. This is terrible. I need this to end. At the time too, she just wanted to quit. I mean, she just wanted to quit everything. The tour ended. And in fact, the last date of the tour was rained out by a thunderstorm. So they were able to just be done. And she went straight home to Louisiana. But her people were worried about it because they're like, hey. You know, you're still on top as far as anybody else knows. You know, you're still riding high. You can't just disappear like this. You need to have like the next plan. We got to know what's coming up next. She said when she told everybody that she just was finished and wanted to rest, everyone seemed nervous. And when you're successful at something, there's a lot of pressure to just keep on doing the next thing. She said in order to not disappear, she did an interview with People magazine back in Louisiana for reasons that seemed ridiculous to me. I wasn't promoting anything, but my team thought that I should show that I was doing well and just taking a little break. The photographer shot me outside and then inside the house with the dogs and my mom on the couch. They had me empty out my purse to reveal that I wasn't carrying drugs or cigarettes. All they found was juicy fruit, gum, vanilla perfume, mints, and a little bottle of St. John's wort. My daughter's doing beautifully, my mother told the reporter confidently. She's never, ever been close to a breakdown. So if there's any questions about that, that can just go straight out the window because my daughter's fine. No, your daughter's not fine. She, like everybody else in the family, is having a breakdown. This is what really made this difficult was the fact that Justin's family had become her own family. She had stopped feeling a lot of solace with her own family a while back. They're so dysfunctional. She was glad to leave them behind and take on Justin's family, and they brought her right into the fold. She says that for holidays, the only family I would go to visit was his. I knew his grandmother and his grandfather, and I loved them so much. I thought of them as home. My mom would come out and visit us every once in a while, but she's not what I went home to, ever. She says my mom was trying to recover from her divorce from my dad, which she'd finally gone through with. Depressed and self-medicating, she could barely get off the couch. My dad was nowhere to be found. And my little sister, well, when I tell you that she was a total bitch, I'm not exaggerating. I had always been the worker bee. While I was doing my thing on the road with Felicia, I hadn't been paying attention to what was happening in Kentwood. But when I came home, I saw how things had changed. My mom would serve Jamie Lynn while she watched TV, bringing her little chocolate milkshakes. It was clear that girl ruled the roost. Meanwhile, it was like I was a ghost child. I can remember walking into the room and feeling like no one even saw me. That feeling of childhood again. Jamie Lynn only saw the TV. My mom, who at one time had been the person I was closest to in the world, was on another planet. And the way adolescent Jamie Lynn spoke to my mother, my mouth would just drop. I'd listen to her spew these hateful words, and I'd turn to my mom and say, "Are you going to let that little witch talk to you like that?" I mean, she was bad. I felt betrayed by how Jamie Lynn had changed. I'd bought a house for Jamie Lynn to grow up in. She was not exactly grateful for it. She'd later say, "Why'd she get us a house?" Like it was some sort of imposition. But that house had been a gift. I'd bought it because our family had needed a new house, and I'd wanted her to have a better life than I had. Life in Louisiana had passed me by. I felt like I had no one to talk to. Going through that breakup, going home and seeing how much I didn't fit in anywhere anymore, I realized that I was technically growing up and becoming a woman, and yet honestly, it was almost like I went backward at the same time and became younger in my mind. Have you seen The Curious Case of Benjamin Button? That's how I felt. Somehow that year, in becoming more vulnerable, I started to feel like a child again. And I don't feel like she's necessarily changed. I feel like that keeps working. I think that there is a enormous naivete to the way she moves throughout the world. All right, chapter 15. This is our last chapter in this part. She says that she felt like she needed to just get out of the house and get her confidence back. So in 2002, she went to a party hosted by Donatella Versace. She had invited Britney to Italy to attend one of her runway shows. She says, "Donatella dressed me in a beautiful sparkly rainbow dress. I was supposed to sing, but I really didn't feel like it. So after I did a little bit of posing, Donatella said that we could take it easy. She played my cover of Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll and said hi to the models, and then we were done. Then it was party time." Donatella is known for her lavish parties, and there was all sorts of cool people there. That party was really the first thing I did to put myself out there a little bit after the breakup with Justin, on my own. Innocent. She says during the party, she noticed this guy, and she remembers thinking he was super, super cute. He was probably Brazilian, dark hair, handsome. He was smoking a blunt. And she says that she just kind of wanted to hook up with him. She says that he was more like a real man, the kind of man that you have a one-night stand with. So she decided that she would invite him to her house. She said eventually we started talking, and I decided I'd like to have drinks with him at my hotel. We headed to my car, but during the drive, he did something that just turned me off. Honestly, I can't even remember what it was, which I hate. I really want to know what it was. But it was a little thing that really irritated me, so I told the driver to pull over. And without saying a word, I kicked that guy out to the side of the road and I left him there. Now that I'm a mom, I'd never do anything like that. I'd be more like, "I'll drop you off at this place at this time." But back then, at 20 years of age, it was pure instinct. I'd made a bad mistake letting this stranger inside my car, and I kicked him out. Well, I'm glad that she received some power from doing that. I think that's the sort of thing she probably needed to do. Not feel like just because she'd asked him into the car, now she owed him something. She didn't. So I'm glad that she realized in that moment, I've made a mistake, and I can still reverse course here. Well, I wish that she'd had a few more moments like that building up to what's going to happen now that Justin's touring for his album Justified, because she needed a few more times under her belt in which she had had power. She says, soon after my return, Justin was preparing to release his solo album Justified. On 2020, he played an unreleased song for Barbara Walters called Don't Go, Horrible Woman. And that seemed like it was about me. I thought our love was so strong. I guess I was dead wrong. But to look at it positively, hey girl, at least you gave me a song about another horrible woman. Less than a month later, he released the video for his song Cry Me a River, in which a woman who looks like me cheats on him and he wanders around sad in the rain. In the news media, I was described as a harlot who'd broken the heart of America's golden boy. The truth is, I was comatose in Louisiana, and he was happily running around Hollywood. May I just say that on his explosive album and in all the press that surrounded it, Justin neglected to mention the several times he cheated on me? There's always been more leeway in Hollywood for men than for women. And I see how men are encouraged to talk trash about women in order to become famous and powerful. But I was shattered. The thought of my betraying him gave the album more angst, and it gave it a purpose, shit-talking an unfaithful woman. The hip-hop world of that era loved a storyline with the theme, F you, bitch. Getting revenge on women for perceived disrespect was all the rage at the time. Eminem's violent revenge song Kim was huge. And the only problem with the narrative was that in our case, it wasn't like that. Cry Me a River did very well. Everyone felt very sorry for him. And it shamed me. She says, I felt like there was no way at the time to tell my side of the story. I couldn't explain because I knew no one would take my side once Justin had convinced the world of his vision. After Cry Me a River came out, anywhere I went, I got booed. I would go to clubs and I would hear boos. Once I went to a Lakers game with my little sister and one of my brother's friends, and the whole place, the whole arena, booed me. Justin told everyone that he and I had had a sexual relationship, which some people have pointed out depicted me as not only cheating, but also a liar and a hypocrite. Given that I had so many teenage fans, my manager and press people had long tried to portray me as an eternal virgin. Never mind that Justin and I had been living together and I'd been having sex since I was 14. Was I mad at being outed by him as sexually active? No. To be honest with you, I liked that Justin said that. Why did my managers work so hard to claim I was some kind of a young girl virgin, even into my 20s? Whose business was it if I'd had sex or not? I'd appreciated it when Oprah told me on her show that my sexuality was no one else's business, and that when it came to virginity, you don't need a world announcement if you change your mind. And I think, that was just like the dumbest lie of all time. Why are you trying to whitewash Britney's image by being like, but she's not sleeping around? What difference does it make at this point? She's on stage, ripping her clothes off and, dancing really sexy, but the lyrics of her songs are about sex. It's all that, but she's still a virgin. At this point, what difference would it make? Why does that distinction need to happen? What parent is going to be like, I support you dressing like Britney, singing Britney songs, dancing like Britney, but I hope you're keeping your virginity? It's like a parent who would support all of that probably doesn't care. They'd probably just be like, don't forget your birth control. It's just the stupidest lie of all time. It was such an unnecessary lie. No other part of her public persona was supporting that image. She says, though, that as a child, I'd always had a guilty conscience, a lot of shame, a sense that my family thought I was just plain bad. The sadness and the loneliness that would hit me felt like my fault somehow, like I deserved unhappiness and bad luck. I knew the truth of our relationship was nothing like how it was being portrayed, but I still imagined that if I was suffering, I must have deserved it. Along the line, surely I'd done bad things, and I believed in karma, and so when bad things happen, I imagined that's just the law of karma catching up with me. So somehow, through all of this, even though he is doing the wrong things, even though he is destroying her image, even though he is saying, here I was, this poor guy, totally in love with her, and then she cheated on me. Lie, 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 lie. And then somehow she ends up feeling like it's her fault. Somehow she's like, well, I guess I deserve this. I don't really exactly know how I deserve it. I don't really recall anything that I did that deserves this kind of vindictive revenge, but I must have done something wrong at some point. And that's why I deserve this. What? Her self-image is so sad. And, I want to be really careful with that word and with that talk about self-image, because I think that there's a lot of broken therapy language out there that's like, you just have to be full of your own self, and you just have to love yourself, and you need to forget everybody else and just think about you. And it's all about, you need to make sure that you're making time for yourself all the time, and you just need to make sure that your cup is filled all the time. And that's how you're going to get a lot of self-worth, is by basically worshiping at the altar of you. Demonic. I don't believe in any of that. But what I'm saying is she has believed the lie about herself for so long that she is worthless, that she needs to do things in order to earn love, that love is conditional. And if people are mean to you, then somehow you deserve that. She's believed that for so long about herself. She needs somebody to help her understand her intrinsic value as a human being. And then start from that point, not just sit there and worship herself, but just to realize, no, people can't treat me like this. She goes on for a long stint talking about how the way she made sense of it all was just to believe that she was under some kind of a curse, that there was something that she should have done, she needs to pay for something that she's done from her past, that, I didn't handle things well after the abortion, the breakup was really hard for me to handle, and so because I didn't handle that well, Justin was just really upset by maybe how I was acting after the abortion, and so maybe there's some something I did to make him this mad, and I guess I just deserve it. She ends the chapter by saying, though, that she and a friend of hers who had recently also had a breakup with a guy who happened to be one of Justin's good friends decided to go out and take a drive out in the desert. They're going to go stay somewhere in Arizona. So they took a convertible and they just started driving through the desert. And she says both she and the friend, like, they weren't listening to any music, they were just driving. And somewhere out in the middle of the Arizona desert, she started to feel some kind of energy. And she didn't say anything to the friend because she felt like if she said anything, she was going to look crazy. But it was like a powerful energy, like almost life-giving. And she wasn't sure what it was. She's like, is it aliens? Is it like a spiritual energy? Is it God? And then suddenly her friend says to her, do you feel that? And the friend had also picked up on whatever energy this was. And she said they just drove and held hands and like communed with this spirit that was like hovering over them. I don't know what to make of that passage, but she says that whatever energy it was made her feel like she could go on, and that she would turn a corner, and that this energy would sustain her. So she ends the chapter by saying she thinks it was God. And I'm not sure what she experienced. I'm clearly a person who believes in God. And I'm a person who believes that God reaches out to us in a variety of ways. And sometimes the way he reaches out to one person is very, very unique. And the way he reaches out to another person, of course, is unique. Because since we are all created as individuals, he knows that what we need is many times an individual touch. So what she experienced might not be what I've experienced or what you've experienced. But I believe God reaches out to us in a number of different ways. And so maybe she did experience his love in that moment, in a like almost celestial way of just like a power from heaven. Like the sky was beautiful and the night air was beautiful, and she felt his presence in that. So I don't know, very interesting. The next chapters that we're going to read about is how she's going to try to get out of this slump and how she's going to try to recover her career, because she's dipping in popularity because Justin is trampling her in order to climb up higher. So she's going to have to figure out a way to kind of get some of her power back, but it's going to be a rough ride. And her mental well-being is very unstable at this point, and it doesn't really get better from here. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate you listening, and I will cut up this long episode into shorts so you don't have to listen to the whole thing again if there was one part you wanted to listen to again and hear a little bit more on. All right, I will see you all later, and I hope you have a happy Christmas. I know we're right on the corner of Christmas, and so I hope you all have a good one. I'll see you soon. Bye.